The University of Blackwood was perched on the knife edge of civilization, a lonely beacon in the far north where winter was not a season but a dominant force, a gnawing beast that consumed light and sound. It was under the shroud of this colossal, suffocating white that our campus lost its brightest star. Tracy Locke, my roommate, the campus queen with the glinting white gold earrings and the effortless smile, vanished with the winter's first breath. Her disappearance was initially categorized as a runaway, a bright young thing fleeing the oppressive cold for a warmer climate. No one paid much mind until the spring thaw, not until the snowman outside our dormitory began to weep crimson. The days leading up to the tragedy had been deceptively peaceful. The air had warmed and spring was just around the corner. I was lying in my top-floor room staring at the ceiling trying to breathe past the leaden weight in my chest. At 1 a.m. the silence was broken. A sound, thin and reedy, drifted across the quad from the dorm across the street. It was a birthday song. I pushed off my covers and walked to the balcony glass door. I peered through the glass, slightly obscured by the falling snow. I could vaguely make out the flickering fire, a cluster of candles on a cake and a circle of people's silhouettes gathered around. The scene was surreal, a midnight celebration in a place where only despair seemed to bloom. Is there something wrong with these people? If the lights go out, it might really start a fire, I muttered, cursing the noise and the sheer, irritating normalcy of a party in the face of so much campus dread. Frustrated, I took out a pair of earplugs and jammed them in, desperate for the oblivion that would let me sleep. The oblivion didn't last. The next morning, a loud, primal scream woke up the whole room, then the hall, then the entire campus. A murder had occurred in the dorm across the street. No one in the room survived. The police sealed off the college in a panic. I was quickly pulled aside for questioning. Police officers reassured my nervousness, urging me to tell what I remember. As I recounted what I knew, I tried to suppress my curiosity about the cause of death, though my mind raced, dismissing a break-in as too absurd. After taking my statement, Detective Carter left, and Officer Mark Davis attempted to relieve the tension. "How did you control your curiosity?" he asked. I simply shrugged. What was there to be excited about? Davis gave a smile and pressed on. "So if you knew them, and a murder was about to happen, would you stand and watch a little longer?" "Probably yeah," I answered. At least I'd warn them to avoid any unexpected events. But who would have thought there'd really be a murder? By the way, did they suffocate? The fire was quite big. The policeman squinted and winked. "It's confidential." Before I could ask more, the cold-faced policeman signaled me to leave. I reluctantly thought everything would end there, but the very next few days, the storm of ultimate finality arrived. That snowman, a colossal 6-foot-tall effigy built with the first perfect flurry, had been a silent sentinel all winter. We'd posed for photos beside its vacant, icy gaze. But as the temperature finally climbed, a dark, viscous liquid bled from its lower sphere, pooling on the sidewalk like an arterial leak. When it finally succumbed to the thaw and collapsed, the horror it had cradled was rolled free, a mangled head. It was unrecognizable, frozen, distorted, shattered, save for the chillingly familiar glint of white gold earrings identical to Tracy's. The final, sickening detail was provided by the forensics team. Her eyes, the very feature that embraces her beautiful face, had been scooped from the frozen effigy and lodged deep within the structure to give the snowman its terrifying, unseen gaze. We knew the killer was still out there. Back in the familiar interrogation room, the police questioned me all day about Tracy's disappearance. When I finally felt exhausted, they decided to let me go home. It all happened so fast I haven't caught my breath. The next day I was summoned again. Detective Carter confirmed my statement. "Little fellow, are you sure that night you saw a fire in the room across the street and heard a birthday song?" I firmly nodded, now feeling strange and scrutinized. Then came the stunning accusation. "Little fellow, let me be straightforward. In all the statements, only you heard the birthday song and only you saw the fire." I instinctively shook my head. It couldn't be. How could only I hear it? The police confirmed that, after multiple checks, no one else had heard any singing. The dead people all had their throats cut in the room. They lost too much blood and died. The drug used to sedate them was a powerful benzodiazepine. "We recovered your prescription bottle from the crime scene, Dakota," Carter said, his eyes drilling into mine. "Your story is the only clue we have, a bizarre hallucination about a party. Without an alibi, you are our prime suspect. You had the means and, given your history, the unstable mind to be easily manipulated or to snap entirely. I collapsed, a mess of despair and terror. My own mind, my own grief had set the perfect trap. What's my motive? I am not too close to my roommate, but I have no reason to kill her and those people across the street. I don't even know who they are. I laughed awkwardly. My testimony was detailed, but I didn't have an alibi. I was instantly speechless. We understand that this is too much for you, he continued, patting my shoulder. You really had no motive, but your testimony was so unusual and extremely detailed that it stood out and was also too strange. We didn't think you were the culprit, but because you knew too much, we couldn't be careless. I recounted the night again, but every detail was constantly cross-examined against other statements. I mentioned I went to the bathroom, and before me, I distinctly remembered hearing the room next door flush the toilet. I excitedly reported the discovery, but the neighbor firmly insisted she hadn't heard any noise. A lie detector confirmed both sides were not lying. The police began to panic, whispering heatedly. 2 hours later, a group of officers walked in, their faces solemn, and informed me they will need to talk to my psychologist. I chuckled. The city medical center has my medical records. My attending physician will explain everything clearly to you, I repeated, my voice thick with fatigue. The police officers took no time to escort me to the city medical center. We went straight to the 3rd floor, the psychiatric ward. Dr. Benjamin Harris was surprised to see me. Oh, Dakota, why are you here on Friday? As soon as I saw him, all the tears I'd been holding back burst out. Wiping my face, I sobbed. They suspect me. I collapsed into uncontrollable trembling and ignored the stunned policeman. I couldn't escape the truth. I have a history of mental illness, suffering from severe depression and still needing weekly medication. When I was young, I suffered from autism and had to be treated in the medical center for 5 years. When I grew up, I suffered from severe depression. Even now, I still have to go to the medical center every week to get medicine. I couldn't sleep without taking the medicine. What hurt me even more was that they might contact my parents. The 2 people who had always loved me, always protected me. I was afraid of disappointing them to that extent. Since the victims were likely drugged and I had sedatives, I became the most likely suspect. The thought of disappointing my loving parents sent my panic into overdrive. My whole body shook and I could only whisper, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me." My vision darkened. I was hallucinating again, my greatest fear. Since my diagnosis, I had worked so hard to control my emotions and follow Dr. Harris's instructions because I was terrified of this darkness. I trembled and shined my phone flashlight straight into my eyes, searching for a bit of saving light. Just as I choked with pain, a low, gentle voice cut through the haze. Dr. Harris's "Don't be afraid" pulled me back. He politely asked the police to leave, giving me a moment of peace. Dr. Harris, bless his soul, was the one who pulled me back from the brink. "I trust you, Dakota. I have been treating you for a long time and your condition is stable. I do not think you are a murderer." Dr. Harris sighed softly, his eyes becoming serious. "In your case, one could say he was set up by someone else. But this matter became so difficult. Because all the suspicions pointed to you. Your dorm was an old hall, there were no cameras, no clear alibi. The police had no other choice but to cling to the only clue, which was you, and continue investigating from you." After speaking, he raised his hand and patted my head, chuckling softly. "Understand, Dakota? Whoever the killer is, he calculated very cleverly, step by step, tightening you up. Next, maybe he will lure your parents out and force everything, making the real crime fall on you. So now, how do I break the game?" I asked impatiently. "This suspect's seed is firmly planted. It's as difficult as pulling out a concrete pillar. The way to break the game still depends on you," Dr. Harris said while taking out his phone, skillfully scrolling through the contacts without any hesitation. "I guess after the police, specifically Detective Carter, know your situation, they will definitely contact me. I'll call a friend who is a psychologist. If you can overcome the assessment, then the others have a basis to reopen the investigation from the beginning." The next day, a hypnotist friend of Dr. Harris arrived, and the simple testing process began. After a brief hypnosis session, I woke up with a complete blackout of what had happened, finding myself being led out of the room by 2 people whose anxious demeanor, combined with the serious expressions of everyone around me, immediately put me on edge. Detective Carter confirmed my worst fear. "Little fellow, I didn't expect to misjudge you. We've contacted your parents." I was stunned, instantly demanding to know, was it me? Am I the culprit? My plea for reassurance from the trusted Dr. Harris was met with a devastating reality. He avoided my gaze, his eyes red. In a panic, I screamed, "What if I'm sick? Did I harm an entire room of people?" But the heavy sorrow in their eyes silenced me. I was taken to a closed, cold monitoring room. Alone, shaking and consumed by confusion, I couldn't comprehend how I could be guilty. Was everything I remembered, every detail of that night, just a protective lie my mind created? Later, as a young man brought my lunch, I overheard him casually discussing the shocking college case with the guards, portraying me as antisocial. He mentioned the online furor that had erupted, including ridiculous demands for special treatment for the surviving students. This young man, who seemed to come and go freely, sparked a sudden, deep suspicion. As I tried to mentally retrace the night, clinging to my memories as reality, I had a sudden, sharp recollection. In my first year, my deceased roommate Tracy introduced her boyfriend to me. Just because I had never liked her boyfriend, they conspired to punish me by secretly taking my medicine. That had caused me to lose sleep for 3 days. My body collapsed and I had serious depression. Tracy thought that after that petty crime, her love would become even stronger. Who would have thought that James would betray her and then secretly have an affair with another girl? 2 months later, they broke up. Thinking back, it was both bitter and ironic. She hurt someone who didn't deserve it and was hurt in the same way. When I mentioned Tracy's boyfriend, a light suddenly flashed in my mind. A vague feeling of unease that had been weighing heavily on me all this time finally had an explanation. The unusual feeling, wasn't it from that young man who could freely enter and exit the police station? It was him. He was the one who brought food and sat chatting with the police, looking at me and speaking disdainfully. The name was like a spark in my chest. Suddenly all the unease I'd buried came rushing back. The young man who sneered at me in the station, the one who carried food past the guards as if he belonged there, that was him, James Benjamin. I could hardly breathe when I told Dr. Harris. His expression darkened, and for the first time I realized just how deep this nightmare ran. I was released to my parents for recovery, albeit under the police's constant 24-hour supervision. The arrangement lasted for 3 long months. Finally, the police returned with Dr. Harris to deliver the news. They had successfully arrested James. They gathered my parents and me in the same room to meticulously explain the entire case. It turned out that the police had been using me as bait from the beginning to the end. They deliberately detained me, creating the feeling that the investigation was going in the wrong direction so that the real culprit would let down his guard, thereby exposing his vulnerability. And it all started when I was hypnotized. At that time, Dr. Harris led me to recall the night of the murder. I recounted everything I had seen and heard and was questioned repeatedly to verify whether I was hiding anything. After confirming that I was not lying at all, it seemed that everything was clear. However, this had led them to dead end. The real question now is, how do they lure the real wolf out of his cave? After a careful discussion, everyone agreed to hide the truth from me and stage a complete play, turning me into the biggest suspect to distract attention. In fact, they secretly protected me right at the police station. That's right, even my parents were involved in that plan. Piece by piece, the police laid out the horror. The story had to start over from the time Tracy often brought James secretly into our dormitory, slowly he almost treating the dormitory as his home. Back then, he kept hinting and trying to get the other girls' phone numbers, including me. I could tell right away that he was a bad man, so I secretly and tactfully told Tracy not to get involved with such a person. He wasn't trustworthy. Who would have thought that not only did she not listen to me, but she also told the guy exactly what I said. As a result, the two of them casually making sarcastic comments about me, their attitude was both ridiculous and annoying, it was indescribable. In the end, I had to change my jogging place and find a quieter gym to escape that atmosphere that smelled of hypocrisy. As a result, they felt that it was still not enough and conveniently took my medicine. This kind of man is truly the most terrifying. He is petty and vengeful, and his heart is filled with revenge that is so sophisticated it makes people shiver. I remember very clearly when Tracy first introduced him, he even boasted proudly that he was the college psychologist. At that time, I already felt something was wrong, but now that I think about it, he was the one pulling the strings. He was extremely clever, taking advantage of the fact that Tracy was a girl who was blindly in love, gullible and easy to lead. After the two of them broke up, he continued to show up in the dormitory like a fugitive, almost becoming a living legend of his ability to flirt with girls. But the fire near the straw will eventually burn. He slept with a few different girls without knowing that some of them were friends. The matter was exposed. The whole group of girls were furious and made a plan to teach him a lesson. They asked him out to talk in person. When he appeared, they beat him up, and not only that, but they also stripped him naked and threw him naked in the middle of the square. Too embarrassed of being humiliated, he disappeared for a long time. It was from there that his revenge began, which was the spark that led to the tragedy later on. In the end, it was obvious that he held a grudge in his heart, but the most frightening thing was that he did not taking revenge at that moment. He was not impulsive, not hasty. He swallowed his anger and secretly planned for more than a year. During that time, he applied for a food delivery job for the Central Police Station, disguised himself and secretly infiltrated the college, and even made friends and won the favor of our dorm manager, manipulating everything from behind the scenes. He used sophisticated psychological tricks to sow suggestions, secretly rearrange the dorm room list for students about to graduate, put all the targets in the same place, and then completed a near-perfect murder case. The truth of Tracy Locke's death, the horrifying details of her final night, is information I learned only after James was arrested, sifting through police reports and the contents of her recovered burner phone. It's a knowledge that replaced my manufactured grief with a searing, cold terror. The murder was brutal, the body quickly wrapped and carried back under the cover of the blizzard. James then carried out the ultimate act of sadism, sealing Tracy's remains inside the massive snowman he constructed. He mutilated her, using the white gold earrings and the scooped eyes as a terrifying signature, ensuring her final unblinking gaze was fixed on the dorms. However, there is one more secret unfold: the mystery of the birthday song. Looking back now, I don't remember ever sitting across from James while he swung a pendulum or whispered into my ear. That was what made it so terrifying. I never saw it happening. I was always exhausted, always anxious, always desperate for sleep. My sedatives kept disappearing from my drawer, but I chalked it up to my own carelessness. He knew that about me. He knew my routines. 1 week before the murders, I noticed the new relaxation playlist someone had recommended in the dorm group chat. No name, just a link. "This helped me sleep instantly," the message said. It felt harmless. I was desperate, so I clicked it. It was soft music at first. Then a man's voice, calm, low, measured, guiding me through breathing exercises. "Imagine a warm room," he said. "Candles flickering. Friends gathered. A gentle birthday song in the background." I didn't even think twice. It was just a sleep aid, right? I listened 3 nights in a row, drifting off under the same imagery. Candles, shadows, a song. Now I know that voice was James. He never sat me down. He never warned me. He slid the suggestion under my door like poison. A playlist. A note. A faint smell in my pillow from the herbs he'd swapped in my drawer. Tiny touches that slipped past my defenses until the image wasn't just in my ears but in my head. So, on the night of the murders, when I woke up and looked out the balcony, the scene across the courtyard already matched the picture he had built in me. The circle, the candles, the song. It was too perfect. Too clear. Because he had rehearsed me for it. And the birthday song just started playing in my head. That night, while I fought sleep with my headphones, James was already inside the opposite dorm. He'd waited for this moment, planned it for a year. He even stole my medicine to set me up as his scapegoat. And when the night finally came, he drugged them. While their bodies lay heavy and helpless, he lit candles, mocked them with a birthday song playing on the radio, and slit their throats one by one. No screams. No struggle. Just silence and blood. James dragged their lifeless bodies and placed them in a circle, as though they were friends sitting down for a party. In the middle, he set the birthday cake alight, candles flickering, smoke curling up toward the ceiling. To anyone looking from across the courtyard like me, it would seem like a midnight celebration. Shadows dancing. People gathered. A chorus of laughter that only existed in my mind. And that was how I became his perfect cover. The night they arrested him, I saw him again. His eyes found mine across the hall, and he smiled, not in fear but in triumph, like this was all just a game he had been playing with us. "You'll never forget me," he whispered as they pulled him away. He was right. No matter how much time passes, I'll never forget that smile, or the way the shadows seemed to cling to him, as if even the darkness itself belonged to him. He thought he had written the perfect tragedy. But in the end, the curtain fell. He did not beware of me, a person with a history of mental illness. He also did not expect that the police, out of caution, would play big, inviting a veteran Dr. Harris to participate in the investigation. Because of that, he was exposed. If this time I hadn't coincidentally met Dr. Harris, I might have become a scapegoat, carrying the reputation of a murderer while I myself had done nothing. And he would continue to be free outside the law, continuing to ruin many more lives. Thinking about this, my back still feels cold. All of the above horrifying things were told to me by Dr. Harris. After all, in this entire case, I played almost no role. From the moment it happened until the end, I could only carry a confused head and drift along with the vortex. It's really not very good, but even though I'm a bit cowardly and useless after going through this, I've also matured a bit. I looked back at Tracy, couldn't help but sigh. Tracy is actually not a bad person. Normally she is sociable, anyone can be friends with her, but as soon as it comes to love, she becomes a different person, completely losing her mind. Human life is inherently unpredictable. No one can avoid natural disasters, but man-made disasters are even harder to guard against. Fortunately, there are still more good people than bad people as long as we still have a little hope in our hearts. Even in the abyss there can be a way back. We all will be sometimes confused, hurt, swept away. But if you don't let go, there is always a chance to turn the game around.